So what are we going to talk about?
Well,
we've known
how did you
each
get
other.
here this evening?
We've known each other over 40 years. Do you know that? We've been friends for 45 years.
45.
Something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've always, in all that time, I don't know if people know, I'd love to hear your side of it. Did you ever imagine that you, when you were grown up, would be shooting a film like this for Mike Leigh, for a great director?
No, I didn't. I didn't imagine that whatsoever. My imagination stopped at becoming a documentary cameraman, documentary camera person, because that's what was instilled in me by a relation of mine. And he thought that my love of stills photography and cinema, watching TV, would, put them all together. And how about becoming a cameraman? And he came out of a documentary background, my uncle, and he worked at the BBC. And he thought me becoming a cameraman was some. Anyway, it was like Road to Damascus. As soon as I heard this, I was away with it. Must have been about 11, 12. And then I carried that. I didn't get anywhere near a movie camera, a film camera, but I took the stills. And that was it. When they asked me at school what I wanted to be, I said I wanted to be a film cameraman. Always said it. And they laughed like drains. And, next boy came in. But that's what I wanted to do. And so it held with me. And then I finally managed to get a job at Pathé Labs in Wardour Street, which is a black and white lab. And I did a traineeship there. And basically, that same uncle said that the only chance I had of getting in, apart from the BBC, which I tried for 3-4 times, by that time I'd made lots of films, and I couldn't get past an interview. I just didn't have the education. They were only taking graduates at that period. So I had to come from a university with a degree. And so they ruled out a lot of young guys who really wanted to do it, but didn't have the background in education. So the only alternative was to go into somewhere like a film lab, do an apprenticeship, and come out of it with a union card and go freelance, which was what I did when I was in 1968. I went freelance. So I hardly knew what the word meant, but that was me on the road doing loading and assisting on documentaries, which led to me becoming a documentary cameraman. That's how it was.
So what year, how old were you when you first touched a film camera?
I was able to touch film cameras at the laboratory because I did an apprenticeship. Yeah. They had an optical department, and a very, very fine equipment they had actually in the optical department, and I worked in there for a period. So the lab didn't do 16, it only did 35. So I became very conversant with working with film in the neg cutting department, printing, all of that, sensitometric control, whatever. And so I came out of the lab. As soon as I got the union ticket and the 3 years was up, I was out. I mean, I just moved on immediately. For me to be, say, I became an animation cameraman because of my experience of doing the opticals. In the optical department, I kind of veered towards animation at first. This was all to get going. As I would have been very happy to be, second trainee on the floor, but that's how it worked. I got a job with a company who did training films in animation, and they didn't have a department, and I started a department of animation there and built my own animation stand and table and all that. That was all on 16.
Wow. I hear so many people say they always wanted to be a cameraman, and they started making films when they were like 12 or 13. And I remember I never saw or touched a film camera till I was well into my 20s. Yeah. So tell us about the kind of documentaries you did and what drew you to that kind of world of documentaries?
Well, I suppose that's all about a couple of people who, in my life, really. I became an assistant because in those days, with a union card, as a union member, I could register myself unemployed with the union, when they were in Soho, and I'd register myself unemployed, and if any job came up, I was a card-carrying member, and I would be considered. So I knew nothing really, but I gleaned some stuff from friends and went to see them. Some of those friends are here this evening, and they worked in places like the National Coal Board. So I got to handle some gear and all that. And then finally, I was asked by this camera assistant who just left the BBC on the Friday, and blow me, he'd been a very good assistant and very popular, and the phone rang as soon as he left the BBC. You couldn't get a job at the BBC as a cameraman because it was like dead man's shoes. You had to wait for someone to expire before you got the opportunity to move up. So he had had enough, he left, and then he got the call saying, turn out on Monday morning, and he was desperate for an assistant and found me at the union, and I basically assisted for him for 7 or 8 years. And he was a really good documentary cameraman, and we travelled all around the world together. He took me everywhere. South Africa during apartheid, plenty in Belfast and Londonderry, all over. Far off places, all over Africa, Australia, everywhere, South America, God knows, everywhere. And through him, I met other cameramen and worked with them. And so it led on. And then that same guy, whose name was Mike Whitaker, he had a fantastic job that he was offered to go, with a director he knew, to go to an island in the Pacific and do a Disappearing World, Granada's anthropological series. He didn't want to do it. Too hard, too tough. And so he said, how about you? And he spoke with the director. And the director I'd worked with as an assistant with Mike Whitaker. And the director gave me a shot. And I went there, and with my buddy sound recordist, Bob Alcock,
Bobby, yeah.
who you know very well.
Yeah.
Bobby and I ended up on a boat like the African Queen, sailing across the middle of the Pacific Ocean from Sumatra. It's like the stuff of King Kong, into a completely a rainforest on a small island in the middle of the Pacific. And the tribe there had built this mini replica of their house, which housed all of them. They were all in the same house, the whole tribe. There must have been 50 of them. And they built us a miniature of it. And we were there for 2.5 months and made this film about them. That was it. I was away. That was how it started.
So I just wanted to start with that, because then how do you go from that to working with Mike Leigh? And what was it that Mike saw in your work that drew him to you, and what drew you to him?
I think more than anything, it was the documentary work. I mean, he really liked the documentary work that I'd done, and he'd seen some films that I did about a very rough area of London, East End really, a series of 6 documentaries about all sorts of aspects of police brutality and racism and all sorts, which was really good, and Mike really liked them. I thought at one time he was going to make a film based on one of them, but it never happened. But he really liked those. And I suppose when we first met, all the questions were about my documentary background, very little about, well, hardly anything about the project he was setting off to do. Nothing about it at all, actually. I don't think there was anything about it in the meeting that I first had with him. It was literally about my background in documentaries. I think he wanted someone who could, go out there and do it cheap and think on their toes, etc., and not get flustered and, have a natural empathy. He insisted on, he asked me whether, I was happy to operate. He wouldn't, you'd like this one. He just wouldn't have it that there was 2 jobs. It was 1 job.
Was that because of the cost or because aesthetic or creatively?
he was absolutely, I don't think it was budget, it was absolutely to do with one point of view, one aesthetic. You light and you operate, and they're one as one. And he always feels that now. I think if I lost the power of operating, lost my arms, whatever, he would get someone else.
Yeah, well, I don't think I could do it if I wasn't operating. I'd rather operate than light, frankly. I mean, but mainly because I suppose I come from the same world as you, the documentary world, and that's where you're. What do you think you bring?
It's very difficult to separate the two, certainly in documentaries, because it's led by what you're doing with the camera.
Yeah.
And the lighting, well, great if you can make it look good, but you've got to be, I don't know what the word is really. It is that aesthetic and how you shoot it, and what your eye through that finder, through that lens, is capturing, and the choices that you make in order to capture it. Now, in a way, you could say that is a similar thing that we do now. That we make those choices, and what's not necessary, say in a shot, in a frame, and what is, what's essential.
Yeah. So the first film you did with Mike was Life is Sweet, right? Yeah. So how was that? How did you approach that with a director you had never worked with?
There was hardly any prep. I remember that. Hardly any prep at all. And when I look back at it, I hardly remember going to any locations first. I always remember it that we'd turn up and we'd work it out, light it, and shoot it. I can't recall seeing much prep.
But was that working out, he's renowned for working out the script beforehand. So were you talking about that period as well, or was by the time you came on board, the script being worked out with the actors, he'd done all that process?
No. He's working on that process right up until you start shooting. There's hardly a gap between. There might be a week or 10 days. And in that time, he writes down a kind of synopsis type script, like A plus B, go and see C, C on their own goes. It's like that. There's no scene, but he has the idea of how the film will play. The ideas, having spent 4 or 5 months with the characters, building them, he's now got these really solid characters there who, throw anything at them in a scene and they would come up with it. They're so tuned by that time that then he would conjure up the scenes with them on location, never away, always on location. So that 10 days prior, he'll write this kind of synopsis idea of a treatment, and we'll all have a production meeting as a result of that, in terms of scheduling and all. And then he'll basically go from that. We have a look at a few places together. Obviously, we have to, especially on later films. Life is Sweet was very straightforward, but we must have still gone there and had a look at the house. I'm not sure he was with me, actually.
So how did
he
you
would be in rehearsals.
Then?
In fact, thinking about it, he wouldn't have been with me. I was being shown in there by the production, and we'd have a look, and I'd take your gaffer with me and whatever, and throw the ideas about how we could light the place without seeing any action whatsoever.
Wow. But then how did you choose camera angles and how did you break down sequences? Did you do that together? Was that something, did he storyboard or anything? Or
No.
How did that evolve?
He never storyboarded, ever. He's never storyboarded. He'd, basically, he would go to the location and he would work out the first scenes with the actors, what happened in them, scripting them, with the actors running it for him. And he would observe it. The only people who were ever there were him and the script supervisor. That's all, and the actors. And they would come up with a scene, devise, and he would write the scene, so as to speak, but with the acting and devising it. There would be a lot of improvisation and rehearsals. And so he'd come up with the first scenes, which the way they organise it happens to coincide with our first day shooting. So we would turn up as a crew, and he would show the scene. Scary, without any forethought for me whatsoever, or thinking a lot about what it could be, and trying to gain information for people who had been in there, right? But basically, he would show the scene, and then him and I would work out how we were going to shoot it. And then we would, while I was preparing it, and the company, the rest of the company were preparing it, he would go off and still work with the actors somewhere else, refining the scene, getting it absolutely down, so that when I was ready and everybody else was ready, they'd come back in and we'd shoot.
And how did the way you work on the first film you did with Mike, how did that vary to this film, Naked?
Oh, tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like this was much more preconceived somehow. No?
Not really, no.
There you go.
No, it wasn't, no. It was the same, in a way, the working practice and procedure was incredibly similar. For instance, when Johnny goes into Soho and he walks around, I mean, Mike and I, it's vague now, but we might have walked around and had a look at different areas there, but basically when it came to doing the scenes, the whole of all of ours, which was a very short crew, West End, very few lights, we weren't allowed to put a tripod down like it used to be. You couldn't put a tripod down. And so we would stand off somewhere else, and Mike would come up with a scene with the actors while we waited somewhere else. And then when he was ready and he had the scene worked out what would happen, we would step round the corner and, in the middle of the night, have a look at it and then shoot it.
So tell me then, that doesn't, for me, that feels hard to believe. I mean, that opening sequence with all the kind of lights in the alley, that seemed like quite a kind of rig. And then there's other things like the last shot, which is, I presume, is a Steadicam shot off some sort of vehicle maybe. That seems like you didn't have a Steadicam for the whole shoot, I'm pretty sure of that.
Just for that one day.
So you must have had preconceived ideas about some of it.
Yes, very much so. I'm not trying to hold that back. It's just that when I think about how it was, say, at the beginning of Life is Sweet, when we first kicked off, how little I knew. And then that, of course, as you're shooting, and the progression of the scenes kind of builds, and you're able to look on what you've been doing, and then we're next, and I'm there with him then. So we could well go off and into a car at lunchtime and have a look somewhere. That's what it would be, that sort of thing. And you're right. That it's when Johnny and Ewan Bremer are in the Soho and then joined by the girl, by Maggie, that was very much like we did it. I remember standing there looking at these scenes that Mike was throwing at me, and we're in Brewer Street, and there's a lot of shouting, a lot of Maggie, and these windows would open in Brewer Street, and people would stick their head out, and I'd immediately get onto somebody, locations, who would be standing there too, and I'd say, can you just see if we could get a lamp up there? And that's how we did that. We really did that very tight. And they're usually very late night people, you might say. And no problem. And they would carry a blonde or a redhead up there. That's all I use really for that stuff. And the owner would be very happy, or the person renting it, to let us in there and for a couple of hours. This was in the dead of night, but then, right, all those scenes were like that, but then it becomes more stylized as it goes. Like when they're walking over the old bridge of what used to be Stepney Railway Station. It wasn't that with Ewan Bremer. That was all on the hoof. But with her, it wasn't one night shoot. Obviously, it went into a few nights. Might have been a week, for all I know, can remember. There was the T-van. Yeah, I had a light in there in a T-van. That's all I think there. And then they walk across the bridge. I had a light up to come down back on them as him and her, and then obviously something hitting the old woman coming up with her bags, and then when in the scene where Ewan Bremer comes back in, and it was almost like a stage, like a proscenium, and I had a lamp put up there. I knew those because I tell you why I knew them. It comes back to me now. I knew them because Mike had already run them for me.
Right.
He'd in the earlier work. He had already been working as much as he could with the actors while we were prepping and shooting, and he'd seen these scenes, right? He'd worked these scenes out, so he was able to show me, and I was able to prepare, and that happens a lot. It's much more a wing and a prayer at the beginning, I would say, but as it evolves, there's more and more that I can take on board and we can share.
How about the overall style, the look of the film? Do you talk references? I mean, it's very different than Life is Sweet. I mean, there's the bleach bypass aspect of it we should talk about. But so how do you get to that look? I mean, it's quite a brutal looking film and quite a brutal story. So it's kind of it's making quite a statement going that far, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. I would say to that when he first told me about the project, which was probably 6 months at least before we started, he said to me that he told me that it was going to be a very dark Dickensian journey around the underbelly of London, and he also said to me, with lots of sex. I don't know whether he thought that would be more interested, but anyway. But that's how
he told the backers.
Yeah, just what he told the backers. Yeah, in fact, the only thing he did tell the backers if he told them that. So he said that to me, and he said to me, I'm sure he said to me also, he wanted it to be quite extreme. So I had a good think about this. Night journey, nocturnal journey, extreme, dark. And I started to think about films that had just been out, like Long Day Closes and Distant Voices, and they had that working class extreme look, and it was Bleach Bypass. And then I thought, Bleach Bypass, well, that's something I worked with Roger on 1984, because I did some second unit for you on that. And I loved the look of that 1984. Loved it, and I was there at the premiere with you, and absolutely loved the way that. So that's how, in a way, that's how, and also with all, I suppose you could say, the punk era of all the music documentaries and music videos, pop promos or whatever that we both used to do. I tapped into that as well, all these things like Specials and Ghost Town and The Clash and just all the punk bands that I'd done, and the nasty, gritty, down and dirty things that we did, when we were filming them. So I think it was a mixture, a blend of those. I didn't really talk to Mike very much about it, about analysing the look or anything. What I did was I went and did a pretty extensive test and showed him, and he absolutely loved it. And that was it. I did that test with other people, of course, not just me alone, but with the production designer, and makeup were involved, and costume. Everybody, we all wanted to see what it would do to skin and colour. So we did these pretty comprehensive tests, and Mike loved it. And he was in the middle of rehearsals. That's what it's so different, this way of filming. He's in the middle of rehearsals, locked down with the actors, desperate to get behind a camera. And so when I come back with these tests, and I cut them together like a little film every time, they're quite good, some of them. And I put them together, and we take a cinema, always have, usually in Leicester Square, and we watch the tests on a big screen. I see it all the way through the process. And then he is informed, I would say. He's uplifted by the experience of what it could be. So he can go back to his awful rehearsal rooms where he's working with the cast, right? Hundreds of them, all desperate to know what they're doing. And him and I have had this sort of, moment watching the test together. And it's very rare for him to say, well, sometimes I do 2 or 3 different looks and see what he feels. I did that on another year, 4 different looks. And he'll say which one, but usually I just present him with the idea of what it could be, and he runs with it. Absolutely backed up, 100% to the hilt of, yeah, let's do that, it's great, and he's back in the rehearsal room, but he's got that built in now, and it informs how he goes about with the cast and evolving scenes. He's got a sort of look of a film now, the visual look of a film in his head. So it's really important for him.
And what problems did you have shooting with breech bypass? Do you remember anything in particular? Any problems with colours or just exposures and just general?
I can't remember the exposures. Colour. We'd go every single night to back to Metrocolour where it was processed, to Clive Noakes, who'd be hanging on it in the middle of the night. When we finished shooting, we almost always went up there to see, however late it was, to see the dailies. And I remember, being like, oh my gosh, look at that, it's so brutal, oh. And I would look round and everybody was loving it. Mike especially was thinking, just absolutely great. And I was going, fuck, that's fucking hell, it's fucking really out there. But he was completely and utterly supportive. He wouldn't change a thing, he loved it. They tried, Reds especially, they tried giving it more red, more scarlet than, say, already desaturated reds, to just build up the reds. But looking at it again tonight, there's still lips and everything, which is part of its, I suppose, gothic vampire type look on them.
I remember sometimes walking on the set on 1984 and the walls were bright yellow because we didn't want to go completely desaturated, so we had the walls painted yellow. But to be on set and look at it. But then the problem is the bleach bypass was done on the print, right?
Yes.
So
it was only done on the print.
Right, exactly. So then
as
what
Paul
happened?
Collard here would testify.
Because for years, the only version I ever saw of 1984 was full colour, because I was never asked. They just did it. They went straight off the negative or the IP, who knows what the hell they used. And it was just flat, straight colour.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
No.
You didn't have that problem?
No, not really. I remember that it was all about the print, and then it was the, obviously, photochemical grading, which wasn't easy with it by any means. There's scenes with a lot of whites, and the extra contrast, but it's very difficult for me to keep lights off walls. It was just really tough, and then that's what I'd be hit by more than anything is the highlights, how they would pop right out. But here is the joy of digital restoration, because I did. It's a question you asked me yesterday, which I didn't answer.
I know.
Because I did tinker with it.
Yeah.
I did. I mean, it was absolutely impossible for me to keep my hands off it.
Yeah.
I started out thinking, I'm not going to touch it, so purist, absolutely, it's going to be just like the original. Yeah. But then it was like,
it's very hard,
in there
isn't
with Greg, with Greg Fisher, who was doing it with me, the colourist. And Greg and I were looking at it, and I was going, oh, God, can't live with that. Stop. And we go back, and I was like, just take that, can you just do it? But I didn't really do it much with colour. I did a little bit with the colour, was mostly taking green out, especially
Really?
I took a bit of green out because I never really liked so much green in the office block scene.
Why don't supposedly every cameraman in the world doesn't like green? Isn't that the sort of fable?
Yes. It just, I tell you what it was, it took me out of it.
Yeah.
Perhaps it became more apparent because we watched the original print, which was awful to see it, absolutely awful. It's like claw marks, and completely gone. But we watched that, and then that was gone. Thank God. Right now we move on to the DI, and I thought the greens looked stronger in the DI. And so I didn't take them all out. I just took some of them out, and I tidied up their faces a bit in some scenes. There's more of it.
I was struck by the colour. I thought I thought some of the blues were a bit more intense than I remember. I mean, a long time ago, I'd see the film on film. So
not really. I didn't really tinker with the blues that much and make them bluer.
Yeah.
That's how they resolved. Right. I would say that I didn't really do that.
Right.
So say the scene where Johnny's sitting reading at dawn, and she wakes up, and Leslie Sharp, she comes down and gives him a cup of tea. I think that was pretty true to the coloration and that's the bluest scene in the film, I think. Not really, no. It's just the way it stood out.
Do they ever think of shooting black and white? It seems like everybody in the world shooting black and white now.
Well, it all depends whether you want big awards. Because if you do, it's like a scene from that.
This is
comedy.
important. It's in black and white.
It's like,
No, did you ever think about black and white? Because back then, not that many people were shooting black and white.
It was tough enough for Mike to get the budget
money,
for a colour film, never mind a black and white
That's
film.
the answer I was trying to draw from you, because do you imagine anybody financing that film now?
Yeah. No.
No.
No question. Mike's having great trouble financing a film anyway, period. He can't get the money. No one's interested.
Yeah.
Peterloo didn't make a lot of money at box office, but it's a film from which he could certainly hold his head, and does, high as an achievement, and is pretty true to its to what it set out to achieve, Peterloo. But after that, no, he has struggled. He wouldn't mind me saying it. He struggled, and so it's difficult enough. So black and white never. We talked about it. We've jested about it in the past. Who knows? You never know. He might get some money, and we might do something like that. But
if you were doing that film again now, presumably you'd get the money for that film now. What would you do differently?
Nothing.
Like going back to documentaries, for instance, like you must have seen that film Collective, Alexander Nanau's film, which I think is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. But we couldn't have made a documentary like that back in the day, because you've got limited time at a magazine. You're too present in the space, so people would be too aware of you. Even Fred Wiseman couldn't do it in a place for months and months. And then on the other side of it, you've got the technology that is used, like on, say, Mad Max Fury Road, where it's not only the small cameras, but it's the latitude, it's the manipulation of the colours, let alone the CG work you can do on top of it. I mean, where am I going with this? I mean, how do you think that is affecting how you work?
It's
you know what I
really
mean?
Interesting. I mean, obviously, you're right. It'd be really difficult to just put that hat on from all those years ago, and then you step out of you back 30 years or whatever it is, and become that person again, and willing to take those risks, willing to go down a street without really much of a clue about where you're going to put a lamp, and a window opens, and oh God, can we see if we can get up there? Having seen what he's got in store for me. So very difficult that. I'd like to think, yes, perhaps we'll see a Bleach Bypass film again. I don't know. Will we?
No, I don't know, but I mean, I was surprised that film you recommended, the Russian film Compartment Number 6, is it? Yeah. I mean, which I recommend to everybody. I thought, well, that must be shot with a small digital camera because it's mostly, I would imagine, natural light. It's a lot of different conditions. Most of it's on a moving train, and yet it's shot on film.
Yeah.
You know, so the limitations that they had in terms of magazine length, film speed, and everything else, and processing these days,
and getting around that carriage,
yeah.
getting around that down that corridor.
I thought that was staggering. I thought,
yeah.
It's not the technologies that are making the films better, because to me that was a better film than most of what else I've seen in the last month or two. Yeah, there we are.
Yeah. It's very, but to go back, there's a lot of strength needed there. A hell of a lot of strength. I mean, I did another film after Mike's Naked. A director, a well-known director, asked me to do his film and wanted that look on his film, which, I mean, I wasn't sure that it was the right film for the look, but he was insistent. Come the first day of dailies, all the producers and the money turned around and said, "What the fuck is this? What the fuck do you think you're doing? What is going on?" And I can safely say they hadn't seen any of the tests, nothing. They hadn't been a part of any of it. They'd kept away, doing other things. So the first experience they had was seeing the dailies on the first day. And then I was sort of stood in the middle, but luckily a director who was very strong-willed. He said to them, I don't care. This is the look I wanted. And it was like, for me, I was piggy in the middle, but I didn't really need to say a lot. He said it all for me. And that's how we continued to do it. Yeah. He wanted it to be like that, and he got it like that. By God, he did.
Yeah, it's so much. Yeah, you need a strong director, don't you? You need somebody at the back, really, because you're in the fire.
That's right. You need someone like Mike, who's willing to put body and soul behind the concept, behind the look, behind the whole thing, visually, or as you say. And he's an incredibly strong director. But that's how you can get away with it. Yeah.
We even had certain pressures on 1917 about the concept of what we were doing from the studio. I mean, you do any film, I think.
I can believe it. I can believe it. Yeah. No, we need our cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to be able to get that's the thing, isn't it? To be able to get the scissors in. It's like Mike shoots a lot of one-take scenes and all that. I mean, of course, it doesn't matter with Mike because that's the way it's going to be, and you either take it or leave it. But how do we get the cuts in? How do we get the scissors in to shorten this? But of course, he doesn't think like that. He plays it for the utmost dramatic, for drama, for dramatic power. Chooses, There's something else that I wanted to say about working with him and early days. What I quickly discovered on Life is Sweet, and it's never, ever changed, is that we would set a camera up, and we'd decided, him and I, what the shot list was going to be, how to go about it. And then I discovered this on the very first morning. We go in and he'll run the scene, and I'll have my eye to it. And then at the end of that, and he said to me right from the outset, and it still continues, like, "Are you happy with that?" I said, "Well, there's a few little tweaks that I'd like to do, seeing it here now, with the actors playing it for the first time through a camera, through a lens." He said, "Hold the line. First of all, I'll get on, right? There's never been a shot since that first one on Life is Sweet, on the first morning, where he doesn't get on. He gets on that camera, and he choreographs the action devised and chosen, the layout, how everybody is, where they are, and he will then almost take it apart and put it back together his way. And it's all about the choreography of the actors and what they do at any given moment. Not there, just over a little bit, forward a bit. Now you leave there. All this, it's incredible. It's like topsy-turvy. It's incredibly precise direction that he gives. So that by the end, now it can take time to run through a scene, through a shot. We're not talking about a scene here, I'm talking about a shot. Every one then becomes the same. The next shot is the same. Gets on, choreographs it the way he wants it, the acting the way he wants it, and the acting not so much, but actually the mise en scène. I mean, that's it. That's what he does. It is mise en scène.
But you say, but I mean, it feels like in something like Naked that sometimes the actors like David is doing something that might be unexpected. I mean, and that's partly, I'm sure, why you operate, because you want to be able to.
Yeah.
You want to be the person. I know this is my case. I want to be the person that makes a mistake or not. When the actor moves, I want to adjust the frame, and I don't want to point a finger at somebody else.
Yes.
That's my responsibility. Yeah. So, I mean, how much freedom do you feel you have to kind of adjust what you're doing during a take?
Well, yeah, sometimes it can be like that. Sometimes it can be like that. And it's also about lens size and the way you move it and how you do it to try and capture it in a kind of a more spontaneous way. But there's hardly anything that happens in front of his camera that hasn't been gone through. I mean, like, obviously, scenes like Johnny and Louise walking down the high street and she's dancing around him and pissing him right off, and they walk on and on. I mean, we know we're going to be there. As to whether or not we'd actually rehearsed that, I'm not quite sure. It's very likely that he threw the actors into that and just let them go so that people weren't hanging around looking at us. So it does change, but the rule of thumb is that he looks through that camera. And it would have been the same on those scenes with when she it's more difficult for Mike when it's handheld. But we'll find a device that he can put the camera on at my height and rehearse it like that. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's interesting that even you can't tell the difference between what was maybe more spontaneous or made up on the day and the stuff that was really worked out.
That's right.
Yeah. Interesting.
In a way.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's why I love operating so much. You can just wait 1 split second before you do that move, or you can just delay it, or you do it slower than it's. Perhaps it demands it a little bit quicker and you're slowing it, or the other way. And how precise you are, or how floaty you are. I mean, they're all the decisions that lead to a style of visual storytelling in a film.
When you see the film now, which I think looks fantastic, what do you think seeing it now? Have you seen it over the years?
No, I had a sabbatical from the time that it was first shown in '93 to 2 years ago, 3 years ago. The restoration's been going on since the end of 2019. Not with me in there doing it, but there was issues with it, with the degradation of celluloid. Very, very sad. Fluctuation. Was it developed properly? Was it fixed properly? Along with the bleach bypass. Tricky to hold that.
Well, so this was done off the original negative, was it? The cut negative?
Yes.
And where was that negative stored then? Why was it in such bad nick?
In BFI's fantastic, modern day vault.
Right, but it was
Their
still in
great
bad
vault
shape.
Yes. And there was scratching on that original neg. Nobody knows how it was there, and there was, funny enough, a few hairs in the gate, which I think were there right at the beginning, but I couldn't remember them. But anyway, I got rid of those. I did a bit of tinkering like that. Cheating. Absolutely cheating. I'm not going to leave a hair in the gate if I've got the opportunity to take it out.
Would you go back on everything you've shot on film now and do the same?
I know, yeah.
I can remember a lot of hairs in my work, so I don't think I want to spend the time doing that.
Well, I've done, for this retrospective that Mike had at the NFT, I did 5 films, I think, 5 or 6.
Wow. Yeah.
So I did quite a lot.
Quite a
Some
few
of them
hairs.
were during lockdown. Yeah, hairs, all hairs, hair sessions. I did quite a lot during lockdown with a remote iPad at home, and it beamed down to me at home, which was very nice to do. I found the iPad Pro, which I didn't choose. It was chosen for me to be very true device for the colour. Everybody told me that it was the nearest, as damn it, to the, of being in a DI suite on the screen. And it was. After I did a film called Supernova, and at the end, we weren't allowed in at all because of company policy. We weren't allowed into Wardour Street. We did it all at home. And when I went in and we saw it, we all went in, piled in there. Greg Fisher played it, and we hardly changed anything. And that was how true it was. We hardly changed anything. There might have been a couple of shots, and I can't even remember those. It was absolutely held up. So doing it remote is a possibility. You've done them remote.
No, I haven't. I've seen the system, but I've never done anything completely remote.
But when you were in London and you were, the film was based in Los Angeles, I thought there were a few times where you actually had a suite set up, like a little...
Yeah, we'd have. We were once up in Connecticut. In fact, working with Sam Mendes in Connecticut, and in the evenings we were timing Assassination of Jesse James. So we had a whole, like a little DI suite set up in an office block somewhere nearby. Yeah, so we did about 3 weeks. I'd do the evenings, and but that wasn't the same as doing the remote iPad thing. No, that wasn't that. Yeah.
Do you think we should ask if there's any?
I was just thinking we should. Any questions? Yeah.
We'd be chucked out and nobody would have. Nobody's got one. Okay, let's go.
Yep, that's it then. Come on, somebody must have a question. Up back there. Well. Why'd you bother? Oh, well.
Sorry. Hello. I found with the lead character, he's quite hard, quite tough to get behind him, and obviously because he's a bit rotten.
Don't blame me.
No, I'm not. I say, is it quite tricky? Do you find yourself not? It must be hard to sort of.
Like fights on the set, right?
No.
I throw them aside and get hold of the director saying, "Don't. How could you? How could you be doing this brutality?"
Is it almost like? Did you have to strike a balance of lighting him in a way that was sort of you're trying to shoot him, not really in an empathetic way, but I don't know. Is there a tricky balance there? Because he does start off as proper rotten. Do you have to pull back, or I don't know? Is there anything your end you do to not make him so much of a? I don't really want to say it.
That's kind of what I was asking earlier. It was a temptation when you've got something so dark to kind of not pretty it up, but actually lighten it in the way you shoot it. But this is totally uncompromising, right?
Yeah. I don't remember once even having a thought about that while we were shooting the film. The other guy, the animal, the utter bastard, I feel a bit differently about him, but I didn't really, when you're making it up as you go along, which is basically what we do, I've got a lot of things on my mind when it comes to shooting and lighting a scene, trying to make it consistent with what's gone before and in the style of, and how any one person is, I certainly didn't need anybody with zip problems or anything. I did. That would have been death on bleach bypass, but I didn't have any of that. I would say that I go with the style of it, the look of it that I've got in my mind, and try and keep it homogeneous as a whole. So that the style runs through the film. That's the tricky bit. That's the tricky bit of not doing anything that goes off the train, goes off the train. It's got to stay within the film so that the film looks like one film.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Can't use gauzes, can you? Backlight.
I don't really need a microphone. It's about the security guard scene. Just talk a bit about the security guard scene. Can you just talk a bit about it? Just the lighting.
Yeah, was obviously shot location. How much lighting did you do in that office block?
Yeah, very little on the closer scenes, but mostly the whole place was lit with fluorescent lights, and that's how I went. But I was, selective with which ones I had on, and then I had bounce boards to bring the light back. And I think, because there were thousands of tubes in there, we didn't have the time or the money to change them. And so I went with them, and that's what gave me the over green thing that I didn't really like that much. But, yeah. But when they were in corridors or in the lifts or in the toilets, I would use... I think I was still using, I tell you what, I was still using those same tubes, I'm almost sure. I had little units made up with the same tubes that ran through the building. But even those changed, those tubes. They would change from floor to floor because that's what it used to be like. They just put in anything, in buildings. Cool, white.
You know
Yes.
that there's a long scene that's played in silhouette between Johnny and Brian, right? How did that come about? It's all silhouette. Sometimes I do a silhouette. I ask the director about silhouette, and you've got to be very careful because some directors think a silhouette actually has detail in the shadows, but I don't.
Yeah.
But how did that come about? Because it's a very bold choice for a long part of a scene.
Well, when we decided on that location, we all went along to see it during the day, and we talked about it a lot. And obviously, the scene was in the dead of night, takes place in the dead of night. So, I think there was, at first, there was a perhaps thought that Mike could go in there with the actors and rehearse it during the day and just close the blinds. Mm-hmm. But it quickly became apparent that wasn't going to work because there's so many scenes that you're looking out windows and you see when he's closing the blinds, and it's the whole feel of it at night, actually, without traffic noise. Charlotte Street, that was much different then, dead as a doornail up that end of Charlotte Street. So it's decided that, Mike decided that he would go in there with the actors and only rehearse at night, which is like, all right. And so they were in there for at least a week, probably longer if I was honest, rehearsing that at night. And then, so he had seen a lot of, by the time we started, he had seen a lot of the scenes evolve. And that's one thing he saw when he was rehearsing. They went into this area, suddenly came around this corner, and Mike was following them and watching it, and they hadn't turned the lights off. And that's how it came about. He had seen it. Not so much, starting and tracking in like we do, but seen the idea of them in silhouette. I think it was me who said we should move in, and keep it closing in on it. But that's how that evolved. Yeah, but to answer that question, mostly it was lit by the fluorescent tubes in the building, apart from certain modelling lights that I had there to get in there.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Oh, it's me. Hi.
Hi, Nick.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Yeah, look, 8 to 12 Broadwick Street. There you go. You've answered so many of the questions already, Dick, but just one kind of quite boring technical one. When you went in to do the restoration, to do the 4K version, did that come from the negative or the DI? Or
No, it came from the original
how did that
neg.
work out?
Original neg, Nick.
So,
Original
am I
negative.
right in saying then that you recreated the look?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. It was the only way to go.
Yeah,
Because
that's what I assumed.
Yeah, but we simulated the bleach bypass. We had to.
Yeah.
It just didn't exist anywhere else. I did have a thought later on about whether you could possibly do it by striking striking a print, and then I think it would have been
Yeah,
absolutely awful.
Yeah.
I did wonder about whether you could go through on film and then transfer it to digital, but I think it'd have been awful. Everything I've seen like that has been not
Well,
worked.
you'd have had less control as well. You'd have had less, less flexibility in what you're doing. I think when we did 1984, we went back to the neg when we could find it. And we had to completely recreate the look.
It made me wonder when I was watching it whether how you'd go about recreating that from a digital image nowadays, because it all seems to be possible, but whether it would be as you say, acceptable.
Well, it certainly is technical. Greg Fisher is here. Greg? Is Greg here? Oh, Greg's at the back. You could ask Greg afterwards that. Say hello to Greg Fisher, who's the colorist on it. But he would explain what you have to do. But it is obviously it's digital trickery that gets you there, and simulating that look.
Thank you, Dick. Yeah, it's one of the wonders of the BFI's far-sightedness, really. They have kept a print from the original negative of all these films.
That's
and
right.
the
That's
original
right.
concept when we started Bleach Bypass was don't mess with the negative at all. But when it came to digital restoration or restoration from video, the technique was to show the colorist a print in a theatre, and then he goes straight into the DI suite
That's
with that
exactly
in his
what we did.
head
That's what we did.
and recreate it.
Yeah, which is, in a way, the answer to Nick's thing, which
Yeah.
is fantastic of them to have the foresight to keep a print in their storage facilities. That was, it wasn't pristine, but they kept one. And so Greg was able to look at that print. Mike and I were with him, Mike Leigh and I were with him. And then really, Greg would put it up against what we were doing. So it's pretty damn close, but it isn't bleach bypass that you would get on celluloid. There's no question about it. I couldn't ever put my hand up and say, no, that's it, because it's more extreme on film. And
There's a sort of
there's
luminescence about it as well.
Yeah, there's
isn't there?
nothing
Something
you can do about
the
it.
way the
Yeah.
silver particles in it kind of like
Still
they
retain-
glow in the highlights, and there's something
Yeah.
about it that's very, very
quite magical.
different. Because not many films were done bleach bypass on the print, were they? Let's face it.
No.
Because then the bleach bypass became, what was it, ENR or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a whole different.
Well, I think that was
series of
running in
different labs
Italy.
had.
Storaro's thing that was. It was
Yeah.
running in Italy alongside bleach bypass, like a lesser version of it. And in fact, Metricolor had their own version of ENR, which was like a halfway stage between.
Yeah,
that
you
and
could
bleach bypass.
you could say what percentages you
Yeah.
wanted, because in Jesse James we did like something, I think it was like 40-odd%. You know, we did a whole lot of tests and you could dial it in.
Yes.
But that was on the negative. You know, so
Oh,
you didn't
right,
have
yeah.
the problem of, yeah.
Yes, I see. On the internet,
No, done on the negative.
that ENR process.
I think it was called ENR, wasn't it? Somebody
No,
knows
not-
better than me, but
But that was in the States at a lab over there.
yeah, each lab has different process, didn't they?
Yeah, each lab's
Yeah.
got different ones.
Yeah, because we were at Deluxe, right? Well, Duart had one, didn't they? Yeah.
They won't give their secret. They never
No,
gave their
right.
secrets
But, you know,
away.
they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And it all comes from Keizu Miyagawa, who did a process called silver tint that he took to his grave.
Without
Yeah, absolutely.
I can just see now in the future people get hold of the bleach bypass digitally, and they'll say, "How can we introduce the silver halide grains
Yeah, there you go.
sparkling away?"
Yeah.
I know. There you go.
Of course, the big problem was that the projectors blew up. I don't know if yours had. We had prints in 1984 going through a projector and it burst into flames because the silver so intense it would keep the heat in the projector.
Goodness me!
Yeah.
No, I never had that
They were
issue.
lucky then. Maybe they tested them all by the time. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Anyone else?
Oh, from none to this. lots.
Hi. Yeah, I had a question. I noticed from the credits that you didn't have an intimacy coordinator on set.
A what coordinator?
An intimacy coordinator. And I wondered if you could talk about, I might have to explain this, your role, like who was coordinating the intimacy and how your role as the DOP and the camera operator, I think probably more importantly, like how that ties into, you know, portraying some pretty difficult stuff, you know, yeah.
I was the intimacy coordinator. Mike's intimacy coordinator. Yeah, well, there you go. That's that things have changed a lot, haven't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was kind of the point I was trying to get at, like, you know. Just
Yeah, things have changed a lot.
necessity for the operator to be involved in that process and how that, you know, the problem, you know. Whether it was a problem for you in those days, considering the extremity of the sort of so-called intimacy on the set and how, you know, I just wanted to get
Yeah,
your
well,
opinion on
it's
it.
interesting. It was tough for all of us, I would say. Very tough for all of us. Some people couldn't be there. And, yeah, very tough stuff. Very difficult to shoot, really, to point the camera that way when it's so violent like that. Yeah, it was difficult. But obviously, there was the intimacy coordinator was Mike. Yeah, obviously. And that's what the film demanded. That.
But it kind of ties into this idea of, you know, like the funding for getting a film like that made now. With that kind of leveling.
Oh, forget it. Yeah. Well, I'd say forget it. You wouldn't fund a film like that now.
It kind of reminds me of... The film reminds me a little bit about some of Peter Watkins' work because it's immediacy and it's kind of... There's no holds barred. You know, it's like life is raw. And he was making films, Culloden and Gladiator and War Game before this, and then he couldn't get funding, even back then. So, you know, are we all going to make this? Anyway, I'm not going to stop.
But it's true, it's true. Funny enough, Peter Watkins was a fantastic influence on me.
I wondered that, because
Yeah.
there seems a strange connection
Yeah.
in that I say, it's the immediacy and I mean, I'd idolise Peter Watkins, and I'm really bitter that he didn't make more films because they wouldn't finance, you know, in the same way as Mike Leigh.
I thought his work was stunning,
Yeah.
absolutely stunning. It really changed me when I watched those documentaries in the '60s.
Yeah.
So especially his work, so true,
Yeah.
so beyond realistic for fiction. Yeah.
You have beginnings with actor David Zolais. You have a follow as an actor because I'm from France, and you make me most happy you as a career because he's for me he's very younger, and now he was happy on David Zolais. Are you for career? No or no? Because you understand.
I didn't get that. Just
Sorry,
hold
just-
the mic a bit closer. I didn't get what you said.
Yeah. Me, I follow the David Zolais, and I'm from France, and I respect the actor, and I look in that movie as for me as make you happy you speaking with you, and you happy with David Zolais and now on your career as a take on is my question.
I guess whether you were happy with David's his performance and the fact doing the film had on your career. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Sorry. It's me. Ears.
I think that's what it was.
Are you saying, was I happy after the film about the way it affected my career? Yes?
No, it's a career and David Zolais.
And the what?
The career, cinematography, and David Zolais.
David Thewlis.
The career of David Thewlis.
I can't speak for David Thewlis, but it had a big effect on my career, the film, I got lots of invites to America to shoot films for American directors who absolutely loved naked. So, yeah, it was a very positive experience for me of what happened next in my life.
So I was guessing that most of Naked was shot on location, but not all of your work with Mike has been on location. Some of it's been studio-based. How do you...
Very little.
Yeah, how do you...
Yeah, but I know, I'll just reiterate that. Very, very little has been in a studio. A couple of scenes of, like, I don't know, there's one in Topsy Turvy, but it's because it didn't exist anymore and they had to build it, and so they built it on a stage. Nearly everything is on location because it's the only way he can work. He gives the actors complete freedom to open the door and go out or come in, into the street, whatever. He has to have it. It cannot be encumbered by the fact that there's no exterior wall outside the set or anything. It has to have complete freedom with the actors to do what they please when he's bringing a scene to life. So it's almost always done on location. Go on. Sorry, Andrew.
And I was going to say, have you ever tried to persuade him that you need a set constructed, or have you always just embraced the confines of the environment?
Now, funny enough, we had the same problem on this film. When he goes across the road after leaving Brian and knocks on Isadora Duncan's and goes up with her, there's a scene, like a sex scene, or partially, on the bed. And we ran out of time. It had taken so long, because what often happens is Mike spends quite a long time with the actors, with us outside in the bitter cold, bringing these scenes together. So we just ran out of time that night, and we had to give the location back. It was over. And so we had a meeting there, and they took the bed and the lamp in the corner, and the decor, the painted walls and everything. And I wouldn't say it went to a studio, it went to 4 walls somewhere. And we picked it up there and shot the rest of it as simulating what we'd had at the real location. They're about the only time, might have been a couple of times like that, but that was one of the only times. I would never ask him, ever. It's just, it'd just be a crazy question for me to ask. No, I'm really happy. And there you go, it's like back to the documentary background, isn't it, really? I'm very happy to shoot on real locations. I love location shooting. I love what it brings you, the elements, the weather, the surprises, the light. You don't get that in a studio. You have to, but you do on location, especially if you're trying to read outside the windows. Things happen. So it becomes quite magical.
I'll take one more question.
Oh, okay. Hi. I have quite a general question. So in your career...
My career.
Was there... did you notice a difference between like the directors' styles in terms of like the dynamic between you and the directors, and what kind of traits did you...
What? What's the last thing you said?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually how to turn it into a question. It's kind of 2 questions. So like, did you know, was there did you notice a big difference with the director's style in terms of like how they worked with you, like the dynamic between you and them? And
yes.
What was your favorite, like, I guess, relationship with the director? Yeah.
I don't know about favourite, because I've worked with many, but and they're all completely blooming different. I work with a plethora of directors who, I mean, they're so some of them wanted Mike's look, you know, wanted the same sort of visual language and choreography and mise en scène, but weren't really willing to give it, you know, what it needed from them. That's the thing. I've had very happy experiences with other directors, and they've all got a different way of working, but you tend to be the one who adapts to them because they're calling the shots, you know. And as long as I'm not there as somebody to be ignored, as a, you know, get on the dolly and mind your own business and let us get on with if that I couldn't bear. But and it has happened a couple of times. I walked off one like that, and I should have walked off the other. But very unhappy experiences where they treat you like, you know, like a camera jockey, like off a horse, like a jockey. They get on the camera and just get on with it. And but most directors who I've worked with, I've got a great deal of, you know, respect for, because they get there from different ways, and I might really like their films, so I want to make it as great as I can for them. So you adapt, and Mike's pretty unique, so it's never the same experience when I'm working with another director, but other things come to the table. So yeah, good. I think we have to call it a day there.
We're going to call it a day now. Thank you very much.